In this video, you will learn how to determine whether a bond is nonpolar or polar covalent. So the first type that we'll talk about is nonpolar covalent. In this type of bond, electrons will be equally shared. Covalent bonds, remember, are two nonmetals bonded together. And then what we're going to see is that with nonpolar covalent bonds, the difference in electronegativity between the two atoms that are bonded together is going to be small. The second type of bond is polar covalent, and with this type of bond, electrons are unequally shared in bonding. Again, it's covalent, so we have two nonmetals bonded together, and the difference in electronegativity between the two atoms that are bonded together will be large. So here's a picture of a bond between two elements, between two chlorine atoms here, that is a nonpolar covalent bond. So it's nonpolar because the electrons are shared equally between the two atoms. And so the difference between a polar covalent bond is that the electrons are unequally shared. So we can see this bond forms between H and Cl, but the electrons are closer to chlorine. So in a polar covalent bond, the electrons will be closer to the more electronegative ion. So there is a way in which we can calculate the type of bonds that will form. So we are going to use electronegativity to do this. So if the difference between electronegativities is between 0 and 0.4, we say it's a nonpolar covalent bond. And then if the difference in electronegativity is above 0.41, we say it is polar covalent. So we're going to look at a couple examples of that. So the first is between these two elements, P, phosphorus, and S, which is sulfur. So on your periodic table, you'll see the electronegativity values. So phosphorus has an electronegativity value of 2.19, and then sulfur has an electronegativity value of 2.58. So we always take the smaller number and subtract it from the bigger number. So the 2.58 minus 2.19 gives us 0.39. So this number falls between 0 and 0.4. So we say that this bond between phosphorus and sulfur is nonpolar covalent. Let's look at two more examples. So on this slide, I actually have the electronegativity chart here for you, or values listed. So what type of bond would be formed between fluorine and iodine? Fluorine has an electronegativity of 4.0, and iodine has an electronegativity of 2.7. So we take the bigger number minus the smaller, and we get 1.3. So 1.3, that is above 0.41. Therefore, by definition, it will be a polar covalent bond. And then our last example, we're looking at chlorine and bromine. Those two elements are here. So chlorine's electronegativity is 3 minus bromine's electronegativity, which is 2.8. So 0.2 will be the difference in electronegativity. Therefore, this will be nonpolar covalent, the bond that forms between those two elements.